welcome to the show, the Legal Edge Coaching Podcast. This is your host, Trevor White, and as always, I am joined by...
Your other host, Shane Smith.
All right, welcome. So, Shane, you and I have been having awesome conversations all day today, man. How are you? I know it's Monday morning at the time, or Monday afternoon, the time we're filming this show today. But how you doing, bro?
Doing well. And, it's always one of these, it's amazing. Some weeks are your normal weeks, and then other weeks are busy weeks, and then other weeks are travel weeks, and other weeks are a little bit of everything. And that's where I'm at this week. I've got to travel later on, but so it's trying to compress all the work stuff and then still compress some family stuff too, all at once. So,
Yeah,
but doing well.
yeah, well, you're gone a bunch of this week, right?
I
So,
am, yeah.
which actually lends us right into today's conversation because the conversation we want to talk about today is the fact that as a law firm owner, you have to learn an interesting skill set that you didn't realize you had to learn, which is you got to learn how to let go.
Yeah.
You got to learn you're not the one that can do everything. And I think what you're doing this week might taking off, tomorrow?
Tomorrow. I'll take off tomorrow afternoon. So I'll work till about 1, and then I'll come home, head to the airport at that point. So
yeah, so you're off and you're gonna be completely immersed in what you're doing, which means you can't do everything, right?
no.
At your firm. Like there has to be some stuff that you had to kind of let go of. And obviously we're talking to you today after you've gone through all the growth and the learning and the pain of what it's like to actually let that stuff go. But every single one of us, we go through this.
Yeah.
Like we find this place where we're like, we start out like day one. I mean, who else did you have? Day one, when you started your firm, who did you have?
So I had my wife who would work for me part-time, and she would come in and work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it may not have been day one, but it was pretty quick. I had my ex-babysitter who worked a couple calls for my wife, and that was day one. And she may not even been day one. She may have been like day 90, but
Right.
it was pretty early on. But she even helped with some collections work, calling some of my clients that owed me money. Because back then I did some personal injury work and some criminal.
Right.
And then my wife did all the back end stuff. So even then I couldn't do everything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got her.
It's interesting. We've got several clients that are sole owners. Like that's kind of like their thing. And they pretty much have every hat. And they do everything. And it's interesting. It's not hard. It takes about 2 seconds in a conversation to find their stuck point. And it's really obvious to me, to you. Like when we sit there, we're like, oh, bro, they don't see it though. Because in their mind, there's this like, I know how to do it. It's working what I'm doing. I'm getting a level of result from doing this thing. So, well, I can't change it because I'm the one. I'm the one that knows how to do this. Yep. And if I'm the guy, then no one else can be the guy. I can't let anyone else come in. And it's a weird thing that every business owner has to deal with this separation.
There is. And you start out really stupid. I mean, in the beginning, you're doing some stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, so I did criminal work. So we did jail mail. So Monday morning, I get the list of everybody who got arrested last week. I send out my postcards. They got to be at the post office by Monday afternoon. Well, in the beginning, I'm putting stamps on postcards, for crying out loud, and address labels, right?
Yeah.
And I've got to be the one who takes the form, and I'm the only one who knows how to take the report I get and print out address labels on that. And I think I probably did it myself for like 60, 90 days, and I'm like, this is stupid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's when that ex-babysitter came in, and suddenly she's putting the address labels on there and stamps. Right. And I trained my kids to put stamps on stuff. Right. They were like 4 and 6,
Right.
and had to put stamps on everything. But I mean,
they probably loved it though. Your boys are like, yeah, it's like stickers for them. They're like, this is fun.
They're like, oh, we got to go. My wife would be like, you guys want to watch Justice League? We can watch it, but you got to put stamps on stuff. Right. So, but that's, and obviously that's not hard to let go, but I had to let go of the feeling that I, one, didn't have time to teach anybody, 2, that they weren't going to figure it out, and 3, that I have to do everything, right? Because obviously you pretty quickly you figure out my time's better spent doing some other stuff than it is putting address labels on postcards. 600 every Monday takes a chunk of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, even taking stuff to the post office, which lawyers are notorious, especially the small, the single man shops
Yeah.
who've got, a secretary and one paralegal. If you look up, it's not uncommon for the lawyer to be taking stuff to the post office, eating up
Yeah.
an hour's worth of time over something silly. I mean,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
can certainly be doing more than that, you
Yeah.
know.
How
Uh,
how did you, and maybe it's different right now, because for those that maybe haven't heard us before, like Shane, you've got what, 150,
about
right?
150
Employees.
employees, about 20 attorneys. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not small. There's a lot of people. So you're used to hiring, you're used to dealing with personnel people now. But when you think back to when you weren't, right, when you're starting out and you're kind of more in that level, like how did you know when to hire and how did you know what to hire for? Because
So
that's the hard part, right? Is like,
it is.
well, if you do it too soon, you hire too soon for the wrong thing, you just are throwing money away that you don't have.
Yeah. So I didn't hire in the beginning the way I would recommend it to anybody, right? So
That's
I,
usually how we learn everything, though,
yeah.
right?
So so after like the very beginning, because I had come from another firm and they had lawyers and they had paralegals, right? Or case
Hmm.
managers. So I knew that was a setup I needed to do. So I was used to that idea.
Yeah.
Um, and since I was doing criminal stuff too, I was in court a lot. So my wife, I trained her to do the case manager part, right? And she's working for free for me for the first little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then when she got too busy, that's when I added somebody on to help her. And then when the two of them got too busy, I added somebody else on to help them. And then so that was how I did it when they had no more capacity. Cause I was the hero, right?
Hmm.
Shane can always work more hours, but
Right.
my wife can't, right?
Yep.
And the other person I'm paying 40 hours can't. So when they couldn't do it, I added on. So like
What
I
was it
was
like
still,
for you, from a financial side? Like, did you feel comfortable as you started to let some of these things go and you started to build a team? Or
I,
was there, like, how did you deal with that part? Because all of a sudden you have this expense that now has to go out. And I know firsthand this is a very real fear, right? They're like, oh, what happens if I bring them in and I don't have the money to make payroll?
yeah. So one, I did at that point in time, I I was reinvesting everything back into the firm, right? So I had my
Right.
little salary, which was pretty small. But so even if the firm made more money, I spent it on the firm is what I
Mhm.
justified, right? I didn't take any extra money out probably for the first 3 or 4 years. I just dumped everything back into the firm. So there was a little bit of fear over hiring a case manager, but I was like, that costs $2,500 or whatever, $2,500, $3,000 a month. I was like,
Mhm.
I can see that. I can absorb that because I wasn't paying myself anymore. So I
Right.
was like, okay, we got more work. I can do this. And then I was also like, well, if I get her, I can go out, I can spend more of my time hunting down cases, you know, networking, things like that, or working on marketing. So I felt like I could feed them the cases for the work. Um,
Okay.
Now the biggest fear I had though was when I hired my first lawyer.
Mm.
That was the fear point for me. It was like, holy cow, I got a lawyer, um,
Right.
you know, that's doing it. So I got to split lawyer money with them. Um, and then when I had like seven people, I hired an office manager, and that was fear for me, seven or eight, because that was like overhead, right? They
Right.
were
There's
they
no
weren't
direct tie to revenue.
right.
Yeah.
And then I was panicky at that point. That was huge stress too. I'm like, I hired another lawyer, stress, and then I hired a full overhead position, which that was very stressful for me because I was like, what are that felt like it was
Hmm.
just taking money out of my pocket, right?
Yeah.
Because in my mind at the time it was like, could I work more hours? And
Yeah.
and at the time I could not. That was the year. That was the year, Trevor, where I worked every weekend. I took 3 weekends off that year, and two
Jeez.
of them were in December, or one was in November, one was in December after I had hired the office manager. So, for 11 months, 10 and a half months, I had one
Hmm.
weekend off. I mean, that was, you
That's
know, it,
wild.
yeah, if you listen to my story, I mean, that was, one of those pits in there where it was like, my kid looked at me
Yeah.
and said, Dad, where is everybody? On a Saturday morning or Sunday. Uh,
Yeah. When
cause
everybody else is home, everybody else is doing a thing, and there's the owner doing what the owner does, and you're believing what you'd been told from everybody else, so that's just what you do.
yeah,
That's like how you have to do it. There's something you said, and you didn't glaze over it, but you just moved past it. But I think it's actually one of the most critical things you just said, in what, as you kind of describe this growth and hiring people, is the fact that you didn't expand your life
Yeah.
while you were growing. This is the biggest mistake I have ever watched most entrepreneurs. I did this. I was a young 20s, come out, start my business, everything's great, but I wanted to be the guy so badly. And to be the guy, I needed to have the cars and I needed to have the house and I needed to dress a certain way and we had to go to certain restaurants and I needed to travel a certain way and everything became this. Now, it wasn't that I didn't have the money. The problem was I was not reinvesting like what you just described. So I was building the company off its own growth, but all the extra money, anything I could scrape out of it, I would take
Yeah.
because that was me. It was, I did all this work and there was like this weird, the problem is as the house of cards always comes down, it did. Things hemorrhaged just a little bit in the market back in what would have been 2008, the 2008
Right.
crash, right? When that happened, I had no legs to sustain. So the fear of payroll, the fear of all these things, they didn't just like show up. They crushed me. They were like, "Hey, dipshit." And then all of a sudden, all the cars I had, the homes I had, everything that I was if you looked at me from the outside, you would have been like, "Dude, is he like worth like 11 figure? Like, dude, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, wow.
This dude has a life." Right? The problem is I wasn't. Like I still had loans on everything. Like I didn't own anything. Like I was financing everything. I was that guy. Like this part of me is like
Yeah.
ashamed to admit it, but I'm not because it taught me well. But you literally hit on that point in a way that said, hey, listen, when you're doing this, and this is what becomes hard, I think, when you're putting 60, 70, 80 hours a weekend, you're working every single weekend because you're paying a price that most won't pay. And
Yeah.
you're also, you don't have you're not receiving the financial payoff. So the reward is so far distant because you're still
Yeah.
to grow and build, you have to do that. And that's the hardest pocket to find in because you want to reward yourself. You want to make that, you want to make the jump. You want to do that. But and I think part of that is in that letting go, right? You have to,
Yeah.
there's a point at which you had to realize I can't work any more hours, but
Yeah.
I've paid the price. I didn't, I reinvested, which gave you the security.
And-
If you're out there not reinvesting back into your firm in the growth phase and you're in that moment and you're not, all of a sudden hiring a paralegal is scary. But
Yeah.
you pointed out it's not scary if
Yeah. If you know, well, one, if you know how much the paralegal is going to cost, you know what the
Mhm.
increase in revenue is, and you know what you've got to do it, and you can see it too, right?
Yep.
Like when I'd hired a lawyer, but I was hiring like a serious lawyer to come in and help me run the
Mm.
firm, right? Um, a senior guy who'd been in a while. That was a massive fear moment for us. I mean, I remember sitting down talking to my wife and said, like, "Hey, babe, I don't. This is going to come out of my money. You know, I think I'd hit 200, I don't know, 200, $300,000 in profits, you know, that year." And I was like, but I'm going to have a heart attack. You know, I mean, right. I cannot do this
Yeah.
much longer. I've got to hire somebody. And I think I'm going to take a hit because, you know, I was bringing them on salary plus commission, you know, plus bonus kind of deal and all this. And I was like, I may cut our payroll in half, my pay in half, you know. And she goes, well, it would be good to see you on the weekends some, you know, right?
Right.
And she goes, I know you're stressed out and I know, you know, we've got to make some changes. So, okay, you know, right. I mean, that's what I'll say is my wife was very supportive of it.
Yeah.
Um, and, but as soon as I hired them, I took no hit to my pay that whole year, you know, right. By them coming on board, it freed me up to do other things. And I made just as much that year, even though I had a 6-figure, you know, expense that was almost in theory all overhead.
Right.
Right? Because it was all stuff I could have been doing as a senior lawyer, but he could do it all.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. And if you don't, but that's the crazy part. This is the hard part. We have to realize it's the future that when you bring people in and you're letting these tasks go, it's buying your future. It's like there's a question I've always loved. It's like if you look at your future self, are they going to be are they going to be happy with the decisions you're making? And then you have to like sit there as the current you saying, am I investing in the future me or am I withdrawing from the future me?
yeah,
Right. And even though the current moment, you're like, oh, I'm going to give this 6-figure salary away to this guy who technically I could do everything that he's doing. Actually, I am doing
am doing
everything
everything
he's
right.
doing.
I had,
Right.
yeah,
So it's like, well, what's the right? And I think the kind of the carnage that's not necessarily spoken about that's outside of the business realm, bro, is you keep going. I've watched it happen to me. You keep going down that road of working every single weekend. I mean, mine wasn't quite as bad as you. I worked 42 weekends
Okay.
of the year, so 42. So I had 10. I had
All right.
10 off. So you beat
Yeah,
me
that's
because
you were basically a bum, Trevor. I mean, did
totally,
you even have a job?
man. I don't
Right?
even know what I was doing. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
lazy hearing your story. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, I got to level up my game. Maybe this year I'll be the one. No weekends off,
No,
right? But like doing that, there's a cost.
there
But it's
definitely.
nothing to do. And you have a wife who was on board, and she is so supportive. You guys have literally a marriage that is an example to most anyone I've ever done. I mean, it's amazing. And
Yeah.
because she supports you, so she could at least kind of course correct you. That's not normal. What
Yeah.
normally happens is there is no course correction. You end up going to drugs, alcohol, or some other form, and you end up blowing your whole shit up. You blow
Yeah.
everything up. Like the whole world just blows up. That's exactly what happened to me.
Oh yeah.
I
Well,
did. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, I had one of those days, right? And I guarantee everybody listening to the call had the day. I was driving home from my office. I'd had a bad day, right? Clients yelling at me, chewing my ass about something. I don't remember what it was. It seemed like not everything you touched, right? You open it up and you're like, crap, here's another problem to deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm driving home and I'm like, man, today was really hard. And I think yesterday was hard too. And probably the day before that was hard. Like maybe I ought to just hang it up and go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I had that thought for about, I don't know, 2 minutes. And I was like, what am I saying? If I go work for somebody else, then I still got a bunch of problems. I just
Mm-hmm.
have all the problems without without the opportunity to make more money, to control my destiny. I can't even delegate anything because somebody else is going to give me those problems. I'm going to be stuck with whatever problems they give me.
Yeah.
I was like, well, and it took me about 2 minutes to realize, well, that's a dumb thought. Let's get that out of here, and get
Yeah.
back to doing what I need to do. But
It's
that,
hard though because that stress is coming, and what I think becomes the most challenging is when you're in it, you're in it, and you don't see it for what it is. You
yeah,
can't see it, and if you've never been down that road before, and you've never built something like the firm that you now have, like in the beginning, you didn't know there was no quote unquote guarantee that anything you were doing was actually going to work. You could just base it off of things that you think might work. You watch somebody else and you're like, I hope this works, which is where it becomes really this you are who you surround yourself with, right? And
yeah,
it's to put yourself in a silo and you can't see it. And so then
all
this is
right,
overwhelm and burnout. All that will just come. And it's this weird pocket. Whereas somebody like you and I have been down this road, right? We already know. So like when we see somebody that's in that space, it's like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're going through. Here's how you fix it.
yeah,
Like, because I went through it. I've been through what you're going through, and I know exactly what doesn't work. I know like 38 things that don't work. And we finally found the one thing that does work. So how about let's just save that 38 times? And I think this is critical when you are a high achiever, a high producer, because you will hold on to everything and you will think you're alone. You will think you're unique. You will think you're the only one that experiences this. And it will literally like cycle you in this circle
all
until
right,
you get to a point where you don't have the willpower like you did in that moment to say, well, screw it, I'm done. Right.
yeah,
You'll either vocally say that or you'll just destroy it. And
oh yeah.
you'll start fires everywhere so that then it's like, oh, well, it just didn't work.
Well,
Shit the
and
road,
now
bro.
that's what I was thinking in the car, right? If I just hang it up and go do something else,
Mm-hmm.
the pain's over, right? But
Yeah.
you're just swapping one pain for another. And
That's the key.
my wife has always been supportive, but she's always also told me, do what you know how to do, Shane, right? You're a
Mm-hmm.
lawyer. You should be doing lawyer stuff. You shouldn't be doing non-lawyer stuff. Like I thought I was going to sheetrock my basement, Trevor. And I was telling my wife I had kids, and I'm like, I can't finish the basement. I'm not handy, but I can hang sheetrock, right? Because how hard can it be? Now, I wasn't
Right.
even going to mud it. I was just going to hang it, right? And
Right.
my wife looks at me and goes, honey, you're on commission, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you got two kids. When you going to do the sheetrock? And she goes, and I'm like, well, I think I'll do it once the kids go to bed. And she goes, yeah. So you're going to get home at 6. You're gonna eat dinner, put the kids to bed. So you're gonna start at what, 8:30, and you're gonna do it from 8:30 to 10. How long do you think it's gonna take you to do this? I'm like, I don't know. I've never hung sheetrock. And she goes, that's precisely my point. Why don't you instead go to work and settle some cases,
Yeah.
and then we can pay somebody who knows what the heck they're doing to hang the sheetrock, right? But she's like, you, and I try to do it with Spanish too. I told her I'm going to learn Spanish. Why? So I can talk to that 10% of Spanish clients I got. And she goes, or instead of you trying to learn Spanish, you can just pay an interpreter, get somebody in your team who knows how to speak Spanish, and you can keep doing what you know how to do, which is sign cases up, build cases, and
Hmm.
settle cases. You can do those three things, Shane, and not try to speak Spanish, not try to do, stuff that somebody else can do for, back then it was like 15, 12, 15 bucks an hour. Now it's more like 20, but
Yeah.
25, but still, you know, as the lawyer, as the business owner, you shouldn't be doing $25 stuff. I mean, that's
No.
the,
Well, here's what I'm going to say. Everyone needs a wife like you have. Your wife is like she's like a lethal assassin, bro. Like for her to like call you out on that. Cause most of the time dude, we all do stupid stuff like
we
that.
do. I mean,
We all do. But like the fact that she'll kind of point that out to you and say, hey, don't be a dum dum.
yeah,
Like go do the thing that you're good at. It's finding your unique ability, finding your purpose, and finding the thing that you can be. Like there's something we train on in the legal edge where we talk about the three different circles, but ultimately it's finding what is that economic model for you that you're passionate about. Like you love doing it. It's like you're super passionate about it. You can be the world's best at it, and it drives your economic model,
right.
right? Being the world's greatest drywaller doesn't serve you at all
Yeah.
because you
It,
you can't be the world's greatest, and it doesn't make you money.
yeah.
But
And
there's like going and closing another case, just get one more case, settle one more case. That's
right.
something you can do.
I can do that, and it pays for all the drywall, right? I mean,
Yep.
and that's what we want lawyers in the legal edge to focus on is, right. You need to be doing lawyer stuff, right? Which is
Mhm.
signing. There's some, you probably should be involved in your marketing and sales, right? In some
For sure.
capacity, one way or the other. We're both all going to agree on that, right? And you got to provide direction for the firm, but you're signing people up, you're doing lawyer stuff on calls, right? Bonding with clients, giving clients advice, and then you're fighting with adjusters and settling cases. I mean, that's, and depending on your legal specialty, there are different areas of that, but you need to be doing lawyer stuff. You need to be
Yeah.
doing non-lawyer stuff. And we get on our head that we can do it better than somebody else can, and maybe you can, but it doesn't matter. I can be
Yeah.
the best guy in the world at taking stuff to the post office, but I still shouldn't be doing it. It's
Hmm.
not gonna, I mean,
it's a waste of time ultimately, but it's not a waste of someone's time.
right.
It's just a
It's
waste of your time.
exactly.
Right. So it's tasks that need to be done, but you shouldn't be doing it. And I think that's, as we kind of bring today's conversation to a close, just looking at that from a frame of what is it that you currently do that you shouldn't be doing?
Right.
They're tasks that should happen in the firm, but you shouldn't be doing them. And then realizing, one of the exercises we run clients through is make a list. What are all the things that happen? What are all the things that you currently do right now? What, on a regular basis? What are they? Whether it's once a week, once a month, whatever it is, whatever these tasks are, could be 7 times a day. Who knows? But everything you do, and you will uncover very quickly. You spend a lot of time doing a lot of things that you flat out do not have the. You should. It's the
Yeah.
craziest thing ever. But unless you see it, you won't see it, and that's why we run them through this evolution. And I think that's the key, right? In order for you to let go of certain things, you have to see why you need to let go of them,
Yeah.
right? And really, if going to the post office to drop off, that just because you've always done that, on a Friday on the way home
Yeah.
from work or whatever it is, like just because you've always done it doesn't mean that that's the thing that gets you to the next level.
No, it
It's
doesn't.
usually the thing that's going to hold you back from the next level.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that you do that holds you back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would be much better off as the business owner to just shut your door and think for 30 minutes than some of these tasks. And like, you talked about the time exercise. Another one we do is figuring out what's an hour of your time worth, right?
Yeah.
What's an hour of your time worth? What's your hourly rate? Figuring that up, and then saying, okay, maybe, I'm not one of the crazy guys that says, hey, if my hourly rate is $1,000, I should do nothing less than $900. Okay. I haven't fully embraced it that much, but you certainly shouldn't, if it's $1,000, shouldn't be doing stuff that's less than 10% of your hourly rate, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have a threshold wherever that's at,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to know what it is. And if it's 1,000, you shouldn't be doing $20 an hour work. If you
No.
bill out at $200 an hour, you should not be doing $20 an hour work. You could,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have somebody else doing that. I mean, it's
Yep.
a simple thing. And you look at your task list you make them do, and how much is that? How much would it cost to pay somebody to do that?
Yeah.
And it's usually not a lot.
No, it's very but this is just one element to it, right? There's nuance and there's a lot of other things that play into it. But this is why Legal Edge even exists. This is why we do what we do on our side. So if you want to find out more information about the Legal Edge, just head over to legaledgecoaching.com. We offer free training. We do free onboarding to bring you in and actually kind of teach you very quickly on how the frame itself works, so that you can start to implement some of the things that we talk about here on this weekly show into your world. Because really, our mission here is to help you grow to where you want to grow. Right? Some of you guys listening right now, you're where Shane was, a decade ago. And in that space, just knowing there's a roadmap to follow, there's a process to follow. So whether it's what you need to let go of specifically, who you need to hire, how you need to grow this, the process and the way to do it, right? You don't have to do any of this stuff alone, and you can go figure it out on your own. That's fine. I mean, there's a lot of people that try to do that, and it usually takes them their entire lifetime to actually build and get to that point. Or you can go and talk to somebody who's already done it and somebody who's been down that road. So that's really why we do the show. I mean, we get nothing out of it other than that right there. It's to be able to share some of the things we know inside of the legal space, that if you'll do these simple things, right, the results will follow. Success, not complicated. It's actually very simple, but it does require a level of execution and a letting go, that if you can't let go, you're not going to grow.
Well,
Right?
yeah. And sometimes you just need somebody to encourage you to let stuff go, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's not your people at home sometimes it's other folks. I mean, I as silly as it sounds, I mean, I was early on, and I had a family member ask me how much my website cost, right? Because we just upgraded from one to another, and they're like, "Oh, that's a pretty cool website, man. What'd that cost you?" And I told them it cost 10 grand, and their response was, "That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That's way too much for a website. I can't believe anybody would spend $10,000 for a website." So they went from admiration now to disdain, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Joker, you don't even know, right? Because if that website gets me 10 clients next month, that's $1,000 per client. That's a great cost per case for me.
Yep.
Right? I mean, they just don't know. So
Yep.
you wander around with people who aren't in your industry, and they give you terrible advice. I mean, I've got friends who, if they knew how much we advertise, I'm trying to talk to them, and they're like, "Oh, my advertising budget is 2%." Well,
Mm-hmm.
if it's 2% of the legal space, you might as well just about, I mean, you almost don't have any budget, right? So, I mean,
Right.
that's, at least in the personal injury space. So you got to be around people, one, who can encourage you and support you, and not tell you your ideas are crazy, and not tell you it's crazy to have an overhead position, and it's not crazy to have delegate that down to somebody else. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you actually smart, right? Somebody
Yep.
who's not going to mock you because you decided you shouldn't mow your yard anymore, because instead of spending 5 hours mowing your yard, you could go to work and bill out $1,000
Yep.
and pay somebody $50.
Yep.
Right? I mean, you got to be around other people who want to grow and make more money and have a successful business, right? Who have a new normal, and that normal is success and abundance. So.
No. So if you're looking to grow your law firm, head over to legaledgecoaching.com, or you can click on that link that is posted in the comments here below on YouTube if you're watching us here. If you're on any other audio platform, go ahead and share this show up with somebody else who might get some value from today's show. It's the only way we'll grow, to create value for other attorneys just like you. So go ahead and share that show up. And other than that, appreciate you guys being listeners of the show. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
See you next week.